Good morning, everyone. This is Pastor Cathy at Life Point Church, and I just wanted to present a small lesson today from the Bible that might have something to do with some of the craziness that we're going through right now. So, if everybody could get their Bibles or write down those notes, maybe mom and dad could help you later on. We're going to be in Genesis 6 and starting at 6:1 and going all the way to 9, which is a lot of reading, but you can do it in little bits and pieces. But we're going to be talking about a land where there was no water and there was no rain anywhere. And in this land, there was a man by the name of Noah. Now, I know you guys are going to already know this whole story, but we're going to sort of walk through it and see how it is related to what's going on in our crazy lives right now. Okay, so let's start with Noah and let's start with a little bit of prayer. Okay, so close your eyes, put your hands together. Okay, Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day today. I thank you that we can have this lesson and hoping that the children and their family will all be able to talk about the story and see how it relates to us today, but also how it can be show how God's love and grace is there for us and his protection for us too. We thank you for being with us today. And all God's children said, Amen. All righty. So we all know about Noah, and I know some of you are going to say, I know the story and everything, but it's a good story to go back to. It's like a bedtime story. So we're going to talk about Noah, and we've gone past God creating the world, and now we've gone past Adam and Eve and that little mistake that they made, and we are in farther down in Genesis. And we're just going to talk about Noah and his family. Noah loved the Lord, and the Lord loved Noah. And Noah was a family man, and he had a wife, and he had two sons, and he just worshiped the Lord, just like we do. He prayed and he talked to him. And one day the God had reached a point where he was tired of all the other people. Even in the town that Noah lived in, there was a lot of people that wanted to do things their way, and that's all they cared about. And so God finally reached a point where he just didn't like the people on the ground anymore. And so he told Noah that it was time to build a boat because Noah was special in God's heart. And so he said, let's go ahead and build a boat, and I'm going to give you really, really good directions on how to do that. So in the first part of Genesis or in Genesis 6, it's the Lord saw the wickedness. He saw the craziness that was going on in the world. But Noah's family and Noah, he showed a lot of grace to. Okay, do you remember what we talked about in regards to grace? Okay, grace is just forgiveness and then forgetting about it and just understanding that there is no one perfect and not everybody's going to do what we want them to do. And so we have to have grace. Plus, we don't always understand where all you guys are coming from. Each of you kids has a different situation at your house. And so, if you have brothers and sisters, you have to show that grace to them. And I know it's hard, but that's what you have to do at times. And so, in Genesis 6, Noah is being told by God how to build the ark. He didn't just tell him, go and build an ark. He told him very specific directions on how to. So I'm going to read a little bit to you, not all of it, but just a little bit to let you know how detailed and that God knows what's going on in our lives. Okay, even though we think it's very crazy or chaotic or just don't understand, God does, and there's a reason that sometimes things happen. So God tells Noah, make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and outside with pitch. And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Now, what's a cubit? That's a good question. And that was a measurement that was used back then. But if you look it up in Noah's or Google Noah's Ark, most of them will say that it's approximately the length of 3 football fields. So if you can imagine a football field that you go out and then imagine another one and another one, it's pretty long. And we do have somewhere, I think it's like Tennessee or somewhere, where there is an actual Noah's Ark built, so you can see how big and tall it is. And then you shall make a window for the ark, and you shall finish it to a cubit from above, and set the door of the ark on its side. And you shall make it with a lower, a second, and a third deck. So 3 decks on there. Do you remember why we're going to need all that space? I mean, it's just Noah and his wife and his son and their wives and however many kids there might have been. Not sure if there was. I'll have to look that up and let you know next week. Okay? But why would he do that? And he says, then he tells them there's a reason. I'm bringing floodwaters. And now, whenever we talk about Genesis and we talk about Noah's Ark in the Bible, we always say, how would we explain rain to somebody? Somebody that has never seen rain, they're out in the middle of a desert. And now Noah's telling the people that this is what the Lord has told me is going to happen. You guys are not listening to the rules and not obeying the rules. And you laugh at me and make fun of me and my relationship with the Lord. You need to have a relationship with the Lord. And they just laugh at him. And they're like, you're a crazy man, Noah. You're crazy. Okay? What is rain? Who knows what rain is? And so it just makes you wonder, how would you explain something like that to somebody? How would you explain rain to other people? And we've talked about that. Okay. They had water. It's from looking back and doing some research, they had water, but they would have to walk to town or walk to where a well was. It was not an easy faucet like we have at our house. They would have to spend a good part of the day getting water for their needs, for their cattle or for their house or for their food, whatever it is. They're not having the easy life that we have, where we just turn on a faucet and let it go and don't even think about it most of the times. That's a different subject we'll talk about. Okay. So the people in town thought Noah was crazy. And if you imagine he's out in the middle of this desert land and he's building this boat that's 3 football fields wide, that's a big thing. It's going to stand out like a big monument or like Statue of Liberty. They say you can see the Statue of Liberty on a clear day 50 or 100 miles away. It's going to be big like that. And so then they make it. And then once that is all done, then the rain begins to come. Well, when people are doing things their way instead of God's way, things can get a little crazy. And all of a sudden, this mysterious rain started coming down. And they started to panic. In the beginning, it was like, oh, this is cool. We have water right here. My interpretation. But then after a while, it got to be, what is this? And the water's going and it's rising and it's rising. And they finally reached a time where God told Noah, you need to get the animals. And we know all this part, 2 by 2, every single animal that you could have, one male, one female. Let's just bring them in to Noah's boat, his ark. And so they did that, and they got everybody inside, and he got his family all inside, and the water's rising, and it's getting a little bit scary, I'm sure. Okay. And then finally, what happens? God closes the door on the Noah's Ark. Because I always wondered about that. Did they have a big rope that Noah and his sons pulled it from the inside and then they tied it so they came? Or do you think some people in town closed the door for them? But it says in the Bible that God closed the door for them. And to me, that just means that God's got his hand on us and he's got his protection for us. And it's just an awesome, awesome feeling when you truly believe that in your heart, that no matter what kind of craziness we're going through right now, and maybe you don't even understand why you're not at school or anything else, God's hand is always there. And he's there to guide us and to help us and to be there. And so they go out on this boat. And we know how long they were in that boat, right? And the land and the water kept rising and rising and rising and rising and rising until it reached a point that everyone that was on that land was not there anymore. All the trees were gone, all the animals that got left behind, because they only took a couple of each one. It wasn't like they took every single animal, so unfortunately that happened too. But that's to show that God has grace and he gave these people chances after chances after chances. And we Me too. Miss Cathy does the same thing. Sometimes we want to do things our way instead of his way. And that's not a good thing. So we know how many days did they go out on this boat in this water just floating around and staying inside? Well, we know how many days, right? Right? 40 days. 40 days. That's a long time. And it doesn't mean that it immediately things were done and over with, because after 40 days, then they had to wait for the water to come down. And that took time until finally at such a time. Now, you remember how Noah built the ark? He built it with a window. Do you remember that? There's a window built in there. And if you're reading through the story and you're reading how God talks about sending the bird out, and they send the bird out to see if there's any land, if the bird has any place to land, or there's any hope in the world anywhere. And the first time it didn't work out, and the second time it did. And the water just kept going down and down and down. And finally they reached a point. Now, I remember we talk about Old Testament, and they lived to be way old. I know you think your grandma and grandpa, or maybe even mom and dad, are way old, but not as old as these people, because Noah was 600 years old when he went on this new journey. So that tells you you're never too old to start a new journey. You're never too old to learn some new things. So when you start growing up, don't say, I already know that and everything else. I'm sure Noah thought he knew everything. And at 600 years old, he was starting a new journey. And that's what you're going to be doing too. As you get older and you get into school and then high school and college, you will always be on a new journey with the Lord until you go to heaven. It's just awesome feeling that he's always going to be there. If he was there for Noah for 600 years, and we have grandma and grandpas and great grandmas and grandpas that live to be 90 or 95 or 100. Why wouldn't we think he would be with us forever and ever? Because he is. And even when we go to heaven, he's still there. It's not like it's like, okay, go to heaven, he's all gone. I'll come visit every once in a while. He is there. And that is just an awesome feeling. And I got a little sidetracked on that because I just get excited about that one way or the other. So the land comes up and the boat finally settles down, and Noah comes out with all the animals and with all the family, and he goes and he builds an altar and he praises God. That's in Genesis 8:20. Noah built an altar to the Lord, and all the animals were released. The Lord made a promise. Remember that? Do you remember? A covenant. We've talked about that before too. So a covenant is a promise, something that you're going to keep forever and ever. And do you remember what it is in Genesis that God said that you will know that my covenant is there for you? I will never ever do this again. I will not flood this earth again. I will not destroy them on earth, which God gets you excited that no matter what it is, as this thing of staying home and having now friends come over and not going to school and stuff like that, it is going to be okay because God is with us and he's there to take care of us. If he took care of Noah and all those animals, and Noah was 600 years old and he was still taking care of us, taking care of him, he's going to take care of us at the same time. And so the Lord made a promise, and he will never, ever, ever destroy the earth again. Doesn't mean he doesn't leave choices for us to make, and those are our choices. But even when we make those bad choices, he is still there for us. So do you remember what it is? Oh, you should, even if you've only come once or twice. I know kids that know this story, like a bedtime story, that don't even attend church. It is a rainbow across the sky that will let us know that God is always there and he keeps his promises. Or in this case, it's called a covenant. And that's what he does for us. So now, if you received a lesson this week, then you had some different questions in regards to Noah's Ark and his family and his little adventure that he went on. And if you didn't receive the information, then go onto LifePoint Facebook and you can just send a message on there. And I would be glad to send all this little notes and activities that we're doing each week for the kids. I'd be glad to send to you. This is good for some adults too. I've talked to parents where they've done some of the Bible quizzes together, and the parents haven't done too good. The kids were a lot smarter. Yay, kids! Okay, so one of those questions was, what animal would you sleep with? 40 days. 40 days. I know we all have different animals that we sleep with, cuddly little stuffed animals, but what about a real animal? Which one would you want to have sleeping with you? I mean, it would keep you warm. It'd be a great pillow, depending on what size it is. Now, my first answer was elephant because I love elephants. But I don't think that would be very comfy unless we had a teeny tiny little baby elephant, and I don't see that happening for Noah's Ark. So an elephant would be really uncomfortable to do. My second choice was a giraffe. Same thing. It's got a long neck, and so I thinking that was going to be like a long pillow, and then I could just cuddle up with that long neck. It's still an idea, but I would probably go with the dog because the dogs all cuddle up. And it doesn't matter if it's a little one or a big one, because they're nice and warm and they cuddle and they want to cuddle up too. What do you think your day would look like on the ark? Guess what? There would be chores. There have to be chores. You got all those animals on there. Oh my gosh. Okay, there has to be cleaning. There still has to be some preparing of food. I don't know. 3 stories. It had 3 stories. And this ark was pretty tall. I didn't talk about or look up to see how tall it would be. We know it would be 3 football fields wide, but I don't know how tall it would be. So that's something I'll have to research and let you know next time on that. But there's chores. There's always chores. Even when you grow up and move out and go to college or live on your own or whatever, there's still chores. Unless you're really, really blessed, your mama's not going to come over and do your dishes for you and do your laundry for you and cook your meals and everything. So there's always going to be something to do. So I will just hope that I don't have to clean out the animals every single, day type of situation. But if that's what I have to do, that's what I have to do to make it good for the whole family, because that would be the right thing. What would you drive you crazy or make you mad? You and I have talked about this before. I am addicted to noise, what they call white noise. So I always have the TV going or I have music going, and I don't think those things were invented back in Noah's Ark. It's just a thought, but I don't think so. So maybe I would have to figure out some other kind of noise. Now, if you've got as many animals on Noah's Ark as I think there were, I am sure that there were probably a lot of noises. So the elephant making its noise as it's talking to each other, or maybe a lion's roar or something. So maybe that would be enough to be okay with me, but I'm not sure. And that's really sad to say. That's the one thing that would drive me crazy one way or the other. And do you think you could be on an ark with your family that long? Well, guess what? You're on your own ark. It's not 3 football fields wide and tall as who knows what. But you are like in your own little place because we're on this stay home. Stay home to protect others. Stay home to protect yourself. Okay? And even though it's just maybe doesn't make sense to you, you can pretend like you are in an ark. And each of us has our own ark and our own place to stay. And we each have our own church, family, and we can still have all this at the same time through communications and through letters. I know you guys don't like to write letters or cards, but I think it would be a great idea to write a letter and maybe send them into the office or have mom and dad take a picture of it and send it to Miss Teresa in the office. She would love that and she would print those out and we can send them off to other ones. So why don't you think about doing a rainbow? And then maybe underneath the rainbow, you would say, God is here. God promises. And then send those pictures into the office. You can do it by mail. You can do it by scanning your computer. You can do it by mom or dad, or maybe if you have a teenager brother or sister, they would take a picture too and send it. But let's just send a picture of a rainbow. And then Miss Teresa and I will pick different families and we'll send them off to them to let them know and remind them of God's promise. And then maybe we can get those people put the rainbows on their refrigerator or on their bathroom mirror or something like that. And then take a picture too. And then you can see their picture on there. And you just see how we're all just one little family together. It would be so easy to do. So if you got time and you got colors, how about making a rainbow? And then, like I said, mail it in to the church, scan it in through the computer. You can even maybe draw a rainbow on the computer. That's above my head, but I bet you young ones could do that. Or get mom and dad or big brother and sister to take a picture and send it to Teresa. And then we'll share those rainbows and God's promise that He will never ever do that again. And another promise of His love for us. Okay? So let's pray. Let's close our eyes, put our hands together, take a deep breath, and let's pray. God, we just want to thank you for this story about Noah and helping us to remember that no matter what is going on in our life, God is always there. We thank you for your protection. We thank you for your love. We thank you that mom and dad are around, or grandma and grandpa, or brothers and sisters. Even though it may get a little crazy at times, we're very thankful for there. And we hope that the rainbows that we make will be a joy to somebody else to remind them of God's promise that He is always there. All righty. And all God's children said, Amen. Okay, this is Pastor Cathy saying bye bye. I'll catch you next week. We're going to be talking about another situation. Not a good choices, but I know you guys can do better than that. Bye. God bless you. Love you and miss all of you so much. I pray for you every single morning. Bye.